on a frosty mountain range, far from human haunts. An abominable beast does whatever it wants. Is it hare, or is it bear? It is neither, so beware. It will drench the snow with blood and wreak nothing but despair.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and today, guys, we're going to be fighting Lagombi. Now, for those who don't know, Lagombi got its start in Generation 3 in Portable 3rd. It was a Japanese exclusive game, but then again, a couple of years later, like a year or two later, that would be a couple of years, whatever, he made his way to 3U, and then he's kind of been a relative fan favorite ever since then. He's a sweet little Easter bunny type of monster. Not really. So, here we go. Lagombi makes his home in the tundra. For most part, anything that's in the tundra's main weakness will probably be fire. I mean, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to kind of figure that one out. So first and foremost, let's get that out the way. Weakness, fire. Do you have fire yet? Maybe. If you're smart and you look at some stuff, you might have some fire, and it really depends on what weapon you have. But don't worry, guys, it'll be the last time I actually make a particular aside about fire weapons, because the very next video, you fight a monster, whom of which is fire. So that's a bit of foreshadowing. Nevertheless, so Lagombi. Now, okay. Lagombi has a very interesting way of fighting. Lagombi's whole thing is to slide around on his belly and throw ice balls at you. So he's very good at the mobility. So the thing is, you're probably gonna suffer a bit when you go in here with slower weapons. So if we're gonna recommend weapons off the rip, the first thing I would actually recommend is probably, believe it or not, I would recommend the hammer, because you get to break his ears. It's a huge part of like how he gets down. Also, stunning the monster is actually a great way to get him to not move as often. But if you're kind of newer to the way this game works, I would recommend like quicker weapons, things like, again, switch axe, sword and shield, long sword, dual blades. You can get away with some charge blade as well. Charge blade actually be great because it allows you to have the best of both worlds, a lot of power and a bit of speed at the same time. Reason why I say he needs some mobility is because he has a couple of attacks that actually come out super quick. And take advantage of his sliding. His sliding is his most notable thing, because he'll use to actually circle around you very quickly. He'll 180 around you before you really even know it. He can follow up with that 180 slide around with a darting slide, like straight for you. It's pretty quick. It's not like a super dangerous monster, but he's the kind of monster who tends to catch people slipping. So you don't want to be caught slipping on this slippery ice, because you could lose for it. Speaking of slippery ice, he likes to throw these snowballs. He throws them, I believe, in two different ways. He'll throw them in a way where he just like picks up some snow and just kind of tosses it at you, kind of lunging it. Then he has this other way where he actually roll a giant snowball at you. The thing with the snowball is the more momentum it gets, the bigger the ball gets. I don't know if you've seen it before, but like whenever you know when you roll a ball downhill, it's moving slow, then it picks up speed. You know what? You know I'm getting at here. That kind of thing. That's the reason behind that. So his snowballs, they're not too dangerous, but there's something to watch out for. His mobility and his ability to slide behind you is actually something that, if anything, will probably catch people off guard for the most part, and it's his most notable feature early on. So just be prepared for him to actually slide around and like be very agile and nimble, and making it difficult for you yourself to actually close the gap in certain situations, because he will slide around quite a bit when he's angry. So expect everything I just said to actually happen like twofold whenever he's angry. So like he'll do the slide around 180 behind you thing, and usually it gives you enough time to react for it, but when he's mad, he'll do the slide around 180 and then he'll immediately dart after you. You have to be on your toes when it comes to fighting him, because he loves to fight in your blind spots. So that's one thing to really note. If you've never had to really wiggle your camera around to 100% figure out where the monster is at all times, now will be a time in which that's an issue, because he will actually try to do this more often than not. And because he's much like the Arzuros and the Volvaron, which we'll get to, he likes to back his butt up, and he'll drop it low on you. And believe it or not, his butt isn't even his biggest weakness. It's actually his head. That's why I said hammer. And the ears. See? Foreshadowing. That's 2 times the foreshadowing. But speaking of foreshadowing, that gear though, let's take a gander. So for the Lagombi's gear, not bad. Actually pretty solid. You know, you get Crit Eye 2, Affinity Sliding, Ice Attack 1, and Constitution 1. So crit eye, which we already know much about, increases your affinity, aka your critical hit chance, but affinity sliding, whenever you slide, your affinity is increased for a short amount of time. Now, it used to be a set amount. I don't know what that actual amount is. I should actually know these things before I actually make these videos. I apologize. Someone in the chat, please, if you know the number, tell me what it is. I'll pin the message, that way the people know. Nevertheless, to actually have crit eye and affinity sliding means, let's say our affinity is going to be increased altogether by 30%. So you have 30% affinity for free. Now, it's for a short amount of time, but it's okay. Every time you slide, it actually re-enables itself. You hear an audible, like, whoosh noise when it activates. It's really good for weapons who hit often, sword and shield, dual blades, and so on, because the more hits you have, the higher chance your affinity is going to actually proc, and then you make a critical hit. So it's actually really nice for that. The ice attack is, it's nice, I suppose, and constitution is always nice because it's really good, again, for reducing your stamina depletion, which is always fantastic. So I recommend the gear. It's not that bad, it's not superb, but these two skills, affinity sliding and crit eye, is actually the bee's knees. Now let's go look at his weapons. His weapons, what can I say about his weapons? Weapons are actually, well, they're ice, you know what I mean? They're ice, they have elemental. The attack is gonna be about like 90 or whatever, 90-ish, but the element is gonna be pretty solid. I can't really say too much, and honestly, as I'm making this video right now, I don't want to show you guys his weapons, because if I show you his weapons, I'm also going to show you some things you're not supposed to see just yet, because I actually went a little further in the game than I'd actually like on accident. So I usually show you the weapons and everything, but just take my word for it. The weapons themselves, they're really good. They're your, for the most part, your only means of ice weapons, and you're going to need ice weapons pretty soon, so I'd recommend you holding on to them. They're worth the make though, because there's another monster later in the game who also has ice weapons, and unfortunately I don't know if they lead into each other, but for the most part it's always good to have ice on deck. It's always good to have every single element on deck. You should always have one element for every weapon. Well, let's say you play 5 weapons, each of those weapons should have an element. You should have your full elemental suite covered. So if you don't have ice yet, get you some ice, long story short. Alright, now to wrap it up. So Lagombi is actually a very interesting monster. The gear is actually quite nice. I recommend you guys get it because it's actually very useful, especially if you're early on and you're trying to find a nice gear with affinity. To have the affinity sliding, that's actually, in my opinion, better. Almost insert. It's situational, but it's very nice to have because it's more affinity that you would usually have than basically any other set that actually gives you affinity, because affinity sliding, you just re-enable the extra addition of affinity and you're good to go. If you find yourself fighting on like a slope or whatever, or there's a slope in the area, slide down real quick, jump back into the fight, extra affinity for free. So the armor is pretty solid. The weapons are ice, and I strongly recommend we get them, but we get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about his weaknesses, of course. Weakness is out of fire because he's the ice bunny. Hit him in the head and also the butt, but primarily in the head because his ears are very sensitive, and from a lore standpoint, that's what makes the ears his biggest weak spot. Of course, if you hit him in the ears and you have an impact weapon, you're gonna knock him out, and it's actually gonna do wonders for getting him to stop moving around so daggone much, because him moving can kind of be a bit of a pain, especially when you're trying to figure out where he is and he just keeps sliding around and behind you and everything. It's a little wild and a little off the top, but all in all, Lagombi isn't too very difficult. You'll come to grips with what he can do. For the most part, everything I taught you about was anything that's worth really mentioning. He plays a lot like Arzuros, so you'll be looking at Arzuros. Well, you fought Arzuros, and you'll be fighting Lagombi and thinking, yo, Arzuros did this. That's because they're part of the same line of monsters. There's one other monster that's very similar to these guys who also plays a lot of the same ways. There's a couple of attacks they all share. That's just the same. Like, they drop the butt, they do the little swings, they tend to actually have like a rolling attack, like they'll drop their butt or they'll like roll or whatever. They all have these particular suite of attacks. They all roar, quote unquote, roar the exact same way. There's just a couple of things they all share because they're of the same exact type. That's why like great monsters or like Rathlos and Wraithian, they all kind of have a lot of the same things because it's the classification. Nevertheless, go in here with some fire, you'll be in good hands. Remember to smack them in the butt and also in the head. And the gear is worth getting because it's actually not too bad. It's quite solid, and I recommend it all day. But outside of that, there's not too much left to talk about for Lagombi. So, even though we have a little bit of time left, I'm just going to leave it out right here because I am so far behind on videos. I have to immediately backdoor make another one. The other one is going to be a lot more, what is it? I need to focus a little bit more on particular things, because if I don't, a lot of things will get left on the cutting room floor. And it's a monster. It's the first time you guys fight an actual difficult monster. So I want to make sure you guys get enough information, because, well, it's the type of monster that can actually ruin your day if you're not being careful. And if you've not yet carded, this might be the time where you might, because he does have attacks that lead in. He has full combos that lead into deaths if you let him do that. Well, with that said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Thanks so much for watching, and of course, as always, we have a Discord server. So if you want to join me in the Discord and you want to hang out with your mans, you want to get some hunts in or whatever, I'm down to hunt literally anything. And if it's not me that's down to hunt, I have a gang of people in the back who want to hunt as well. Join the Discord server. It's a lot of fun guys and gals in there. You'll probably learn some things. You'll probably make some new friends. It's always fun. Link will be in the description. But if you don't want to do that, or if you also want to do this, you can follow me on Twitter. I actually really like when people follow me on Twitter, because it keeps them up to date as actually when we're doing stuff. So for those who actually didn't know, I wasn't making videos all of yesterday on Twitter. You knew, because I said so on Twitter. So that's, see, you keep up with me on Twitter, you stay in the loop, stay in the know when I'm going to stream, when I'm going to drop videos, and so on and so forth. But with that said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Thanks so much for watching again, and as always, may the Desire Sensor be in your favor.